Hi everyone, this is Phyllis with Phyllis Finds. I am coming to you today with another tutorial. This one involves the addition of buttons, or you can use beads, but a quick way to do buttons is what I'm doing today. Now, I have bought in the past these little containers of buttons. And so, turn on these lights here so you can see a little better. These containers of buttons, these were in Greenbrier, and they were a mix of buttons. And I have sorted through them and got all the greens in one, the blacks and browns in one, and then, of course, the reds, purples, and colored ones in another. I have selected various beads to use that go with this journal that I'm working on. So I'm going to sew the signatures in this journal. So I'm going to show you how I go about sewing them in and putting the beads in. Now, I've clipped my signature together. I've already punched my holes through my binding so that I can, put this in. So I start with the second hole down. And once you get it through, find your second hole down on your binding on the inside. So this is my first signature. And sometimes it's not the easiest to get these through, but once you get it through, I always pull until I have a tail. Now I leave a tail for tying off, and I clip it to the journal up to the top corner. So on the back side, as you can see, we are going to go up to the top where our first hole is. Now, usually I just bind this off this way, but because I'm putting buttons in, I want to put all the buttons that I plan on putting in each of the different sections. So I've got 2 buttons per section that I'm going to put in. I need to get one more button out of this collection for the bottom down here, and I'm thinking a green one will look good because I've got greens on the top. Don't have too many of them. And the reason I've kept these buttons out is because sometimes they do not go through the needle. Now I use a fairly thick needle with a wide open hole, but you want to be able to thread through. So go in and out. And these that have the double holes, I do it on the angle. So when they have the 4 holes, I've got an angle going. And I just adjust it that way. And then back through my top hole. And once you get through the top hole, you should be able to see it here, coming through the top of your journal. You want to pull it fairly tight, and then back through your holes that you've created when you've punch through. Now I come back down. I'm on the top. Come back down into the second hole again and in through the second hole on the bottom. Now I want to pull that to the side there because I really don't want it to go through the thread. If you go through the thread, then you end up not being able to do what you need to do. Buttons out of the way. And let's see if we can get it to come. There it is. You see it coming through. So now you got your buttons up here. You can move these anywhere you want once you start to tighten things down. Now I'm going to put 2 more buttons in. Now the interesting thing about doing this buttons is you can cross over if you want to the other side. Now I have done that, crossed, did zigzags. This one here, I'm just doing a simple, showing you a simple method to put buttons on your spine. Once again, get those buttons. Go back through the hole. You should be able to see it if you punched it right. And in through that one. Now I'm going to go back down through the bottom on the inside. Back out. Now I've got the 4 buttons, so I'm going to do 2 more. I'm going to start at the bottom of this one because that's where I'm at. Set those guys aside. And it's a nice way to use buttons. Now, some of these buttons have names on them. This one here says Arena on the outside. They're unique buttons, and so it's kind of fun to look through the buttons that you get. They come in all sizes. Like this one here has like a spoke wheel one in there. All different types of buttons. There is even, let's see if I can find it, little flower buttons. Of course, if you can't find buttons at Dollar Tree, and I have not seen any in there, you can use beads. Beads work just as grand as the buttons. Make sure I'm not going through the thread there. Okay. These guys out of the way. Now this is where I tighten and make sure everything is tight on the outside. My buttons are tight. I can move these around if I need to. But it allows me to be able to move anything in any way and form. Okay, so once you get it tight, you can take that thread out. And this one here, I'm going to flip this up so it's out of the way for the moment. You can see how I bind this off. Now you can just tie a knot here in the center and have everything dangle down and put your tassels on there. So that's what I'm going to do on this one. I loop through once and then I loop through again. This is called a surgeon's knot. So it is really, really tight when you get it. And then you loop through once. This is the knot that surgeons use when they're making your stitches. So remove that off of there. And then I can take all the clips. That's why I have these clips from Dollar Tree. They are perfect for doing this. So now we can go through and make sure all of our pages are like they're supposed to. They're going to lay flat, and there's nothing in there that shouldn't be tucked in there. Because if you mess up, you can always cut your threads and start all over. It's a perfectly good way of doing your junk journal. Okay, so that one is all there. So now I got my second signature. Same thing. And I am using wax thread. I find it's the best one for longevity on these. Cording is great. I do use a cording and have used it in the past. But with this one, I'm just using the wax thread because it seems to work really well with buttons. Okay, the nice thing about it is you can flatten that tip off. It allows you to thread it really easy. Okay, so find our hole, which is right there. This and I kind of got off on the back side. But that's okay. That's junk journals are that way. Nice thing about junk journals is they are never ever perfect. If they were perfect, they wouldn't be called junk journals. So once again, make sure that's tight there. So you can go through, and I think I'm going to clip this other side as well so that doesn't flop open. And now we can go back in and we've got our next set of buttons. Now I have two big buttons that I've chosen, and you know, going past this big button, I move it down, I can put this big button there, and then the other big button is going to be too tall for that. So I have to make a choice. We can go with a yellow, small yellow, go with the big, and the small up here, because I can see where our holes are going in. So let's pick a pretty yellow to put in there. Or I can switch and put this up at the top, but it's not going to work very well next to that red. So it's either that, or we can go to a smaller orange one and leave the bigger yellow here, but then that puts it too close to that. So I am going to do the big and then the small yellow. So this is where having the buttons out so that you can see what you're doing helps. That way you can get them where they need to go without problems. And the same goes for your beads. The beads, though, you know, you can do bigger beads and smaller beads. You can do different color types of beads. Pearls that I got at Dollar Tree were a challenge because not all of the holes were the same. They were a, oh great, my thing came through. It dejected itself. Okay, so we are going to take this all the way out, take our buttons off. We got to start all over and go through the center. Back in through our hole, and it pulled out is what it did. Not very common thing to have happen, but it does happen. Some of these are tighter than others. Well-loved ones. All right, back to the buttons. Let's get our buttons. Now you could also punch round circles of card, you know, the box from like cereal boxes, and put scrap paper on them, paint them, punch little holes, and make your own buttons. through. And find our hole. And we can look here to see, make sure our buttons are right where we should have them. Make sure that little tag is still in a good spot. Back through. Okay. We've got those there. Last two, since they're coming up from the bottom, we're doing the big one on the bottom. And the next size up. Okay. All right, let's take all of these guys off. Pull and tight, make sure we're tight to the binding. And tight on the buttons down here. Now this is where you can go in and start moving things around, readjust your buttons and decide, you know, where you want them to be on your binding. This and they flipped, so I got to flip them back. That way they stay tight. And that way you've got a good selection of buttons going up and down. Make sure all of your bindings are tight. And then you can do your surgeon's knot. And that way it does not come undone. The wax helps to hold it in place. And once again, we're going to go through and make sure everything is where it should be. And then you can kind of see some of the decor I've done on this. This is the second Dollar Tree journal that I created. Still have some ephemera things to go on in with this. Still working on some things. These little tags I use the napkin on the little Dollar Tree tags, and then use stickers from the Dollar Tree. And of course the napkins had butterflies, so I just made them the focal on those. And this here is the harder, heavier paper that I've coffee dyed. And of course I've got a couple places to put things. But here it is, the almost complete book for the Dollar Tree challenge. This in here is the second one that I did with the second canvas. Just because it was fun, I wanted to do it and to show how to do these little buttons. Like I said, you can design and decor any way you want them on the sides, but it is a fun thing. And then these little tassels down here, you can add buttons to the bottom of them if you wanted to, or beads, or little charms, tassels, whichever way you want to go on that. So, oops, there's little flappies. Anyway, that is the tutorial for putting buttons on your binding on your outer edge. So if you have any questions, please leave a comment down below, and I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and have a wonderful day.